Welcome to the Boba Joe Show. You can sit back and let your funky mind flow.
How's it going, everybody? Hope everybody's had a nice week and is feeling good. Hope you've all been well rested, well fed, well looked after.
Well
I'm
collected.
here. I'm here to learn today. I'm going to be taken to school. My teacher will be Johnny. He's
Might
going to
be
be
literally because the story of this goes back to my actual school days.
yeah, and it goes back to my school days too, funnily enough. But unlike yourself, I think the two things we're going to be talking about today, they very much still exist in that time of me being in primary school. So I'm kind of looking forward to actually going back and looking at them in actual detail and learning a bit about them. Because apart from this kind of phenomenon that they were when I was a kiddo, I am curious to know more about where they came from, what they are, and what they mean to yourself and other people.
Yeah, so today's topic is basically Asterix and Tintin, or Tonton to use the actual name. Um, Two characters and series of books and such that I grew up with as a kid. But before we get into the main topic, I'll just do a quick little overview of where do these guys come from. They are known as Franco-Belgian comics, also known as bande dessinée or BD. And like in Japan, we had serialized stories in magazines such as Spiro, Tintin, Pilot over many years. And you had people doing ongoing characters or one-off characters or short form, long form stories, strips, whatever. And had similar things in Japan and America. America, of course, is more superheroes and that sort of thing. And American comics, we had the newspaper strips like Popeye and Flash Gordon and Phantom and all that sort of thing. And eventually, some newspaper strips got collected into the earliest comic books before we got into the full superheroes like Superman and Batman. Over in Japan, you had magazines like Shonen Jump, or basically boys manga comics, boys stories. And of course, over in France and Belgium, I should probably mention also, they're called Franco-Belgian because you've got multiple languages spoken in this region of the world. So that's why they're not called just French or just Belgium comic. They're called Franco-Belgian because they cover, they kind of cross over borders and the territories and the languages and the culture and cross pollinates and that sort of thing. But so they're mostly like Belgium actual comics, even though we call them Franco-Belgian. But there's a lot of French characters. But then we get other comics that have got American sort of genre stuff in it as well. There's a real diverse range of stuff that came out over several decades, but a lot of them were never translated into English. Only the sort of ones that were kind of made it to a certain level of popularity did we ever see sort of translated. And the ones that really blew up really big, being like Tintin and Asterix, they're translated something like, I want to say over like 20 different languages globally. So that's part of their broader appeals, that they have been consistently translated and become accessible and available to a lot of different cultures and different people. But yeah, they French Franco-Belgian comics are usually known for having a certain look and style. There's different artists and different kind of movements within the arts, but you've basically got two ones that come up. There's some really good YouTube video essays from actual people that live in that region of the world that also, they're multilingual, that speak English, and we'll get into real detailed stuff and get into like the real deep history of things. But you've got Lynn Clare and Marcinelle School, and basically one is like I forget which is which, to be honest. But you've got ones that look a bit more kind of serious and realistic, like Tintin is like if you think of like Indiana Jones, Tintin's like very similar to Indiana Jones, that kind of style. And while it might have some fantastical elements, mostly it's like realistic looking buildings, cars, things. Even if Tintin and Captain Haddock are kind of simple looking drawings, they keep it clear, what they call like a clear line style. So different than say American comics, which have a lot of kind of like shading and cross hatching and stuff like that. They're real simple. So they translate very well to animation also because of that. If you look at like even this cover here, Yokozuna, everything's got a real simple lines and kind of like flat colors, even though there's a 3D depth to the illustration. The drawings of the characters themselves, they're very flat, so they do translate quite well to animation or to video games, stuff like that. And the other kind of different thing with the different styles is you get basically serious stuff like this Yokozuna here, who's like a kind of girl adventurer detective character, or something like that. I've got one of the volumes and I forget what they get up to, but it's kind of like reading James Bond if she was like a young girl or something, another adventure sort of story. But then you get ones that have more comedy or exaggerated styles, like Smurfs. There's lots of comedy stuff in it. I mean, Tintin has comedy, but it's like physical comedy. I'm talking like exaggerated drawings, like here, like Benny Break-Iron. He's like this weird little kid who's like super strong. He's picking up a taxi here, but you get some like more exaggerated kind of mannerisms and stuff that you might see in like a Japanese manga or something, or Disney or Walt Disney cartoon. But there's a lot of cool stuff come out over the years. I don't know if there's even a complete list anywhere of what's available just in English. I'm sure there is some good wiki or something, but anytime I look up stuff like this, it's hard to find consistent actual information about what's available. Randomly, I'll find something on Amazon, eBay, and go, oh, there's a volume that's available in English. And I'm like, oh, that's $10. I'll grab it and just see what it's like. So I've got a couple of random volumes of other books, one of this, one of that. But then often I can't find more. Marsupilami is another well-known character. As you can see on the bottom right, that little yellow dude, he's kind of guesting in the Spiro and Fantasio book, but he also has his own series. He's also been spun off into cartoons and video games and other stuff, but he's like a wacky animal with a big crazy long tail, and he just speaks in like nonsense like Pokemon basically. But that's a very like comical one. I got a couple of volumes of that. They had like really beautiful art. But yeah, some of the ones known in the West, like Lucky Luke, Smurfs, like both in the 80s, we saw regularly on TV in Australia and New Zealand. There was cartoons of these characters.
Smurfs especially was a big one.
Probably the most well-known, I would say, is the Smurfs globally, just because there's been so many animated movies, not necessarily good ones, but they keep making them.
Yeah, I spent before I became like a full-time hermit, I spent a bit of time in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands at kind of various stages, traveling and whatnot.
Did you see any of these like albums and stores?
I did. I actually it was a bit of a culture shock for me because I was in my like early to mid 20s. I think the first time I was over in Belgium, and like in my ignorance, I wasn't really aware of like the Franco-Belgian comic book history. So when I was Googling local comic shops that I could go to, in my head, I was thinking of a comic shop, like, the type of comic shop we would know where you're going to go in and pick up your Spider-Man and Batman, and it's going to be like Americanized collectibles. But every shop that I went to, it was all this stuff. It was all really heavy, their own homegrown stuff. And the American stuff was actually really more like a curiosity thing that they'd have in a corner of the shop. It wasn't really important to them. It wasn't like, it wasn't their comics, basically. Their comics was what you kind of see in front of you now. So it's like a different world.
When I was listening to some like video essays of some people like from over that region talking about this stuff, they're saying that it's kind of like a proud history and tradition too. Like people are like proud of these books and these characters, and in the same way, like Japan is like proud of Astro Boy or soup people like Superman from America as an icon, or Captain America. There are these icons like Tintin, Asterix, Smurfs. They're like things that that they're proud that people have created these things. So just a little summary here. It's kind of giving just a bit of an overview. So Franco-Belgian comics, known as bande dessinée or simply BD, represent one of the richest and most influential storytelling traditions in Europe. They were shaped by powerhouse magazines like Spirou, Tintin, and later Pilote. So Tintin was a magazine before it was a book, as in it had other characters and stories or whatever in it. Each one serving as an incubator for new artist styles and iconic characters. From the crisp precision of Linclair to the lively energy of the Massenauer school, the Franco-Belgian tradition cultivated a visual language that's instantly recognizable. And they are. When you see these modern reprints today, it's been reprinted hundreds of times, a lot of these books, they've got the same consistent shape and size to them. I'll just grab one out now. Random just so you can see in my hand, it's bigger than your typical American sort of comic book, which is like, like sort of cuts off about there. So they're really good, luxurious reading. They're like a large magazine size, and you can lay them down on a table like this typically to read them rather than hold them up like an American book. And you can really take your time with the panels and get in there. And the story is not in a rush. You can read them at a slow pace or a faster pace, but the panel layouts are always like consistently awesome in these books. You get occasionally nice big pictures like that. There's lots of little ones, and like this is an Asterix one, and this has got 48 pages. You can read it in less than an hour, and they're good to reread and go back to again. Whereas like some of like your serialized monthly Spider-Man, one Spider-Man book you read in like not even a modern one, you're in 5 minutes because it's made to be part of a 6-issue or 12-issue story arc. So really you're waiting a year to get that full story. Whereas any single volume of Tintin or Asterix is a complete story unto itself. You can sit there and read it in 20 minutes fast or leisurely 45 minutes and really kind of enjoy the art and look over some of the sight gags. They're just so good to reread, and they're almost like I want to read a Spider-Man on a weekday. A weekend is like I want to read an Asterix or a Tintin and take my time, or I want to watch a John Wayne Western on a Sunday and sip on a drink or something. Just take my time and really take it in and not rush through it and enjoy it.
They're like suitable to have spread on your coffee table and
Yeah,
actually just kind of not just read it, but actually kind of soak it in. It's more of just a relaxing experience.
yeah.
And I don't
It's
know
like
what it
putting on
is. All
a favorite movie, and I can even like pick up one of the books and just start reading it randomly, even halfway through, and I wouldn't care and go back to the beginning again. It's like just watching a good classic film. Like each part of it, there's no part of it is bad. The quality's good all the way through.
I wonder if like I'm guessing there may have been like a cost element involved, but the way there's always kind of been that divide between European comic publications, because it's not just these Franco-Belgian comics.
Yeah,
Obviously, we've spoken before about the UK, Transformers and stuff. We tend to like printing things on taller, broader sheets. It feels like over here
yeah.
compared to
Well,
our American.
also the pages are like a little bit glossy in the Asterix Tintin books as opposed to the newsprint of the American ones. But like they've been printed around the world so much that they're not classed as a comic book or graphic novel. They're classed as books. So when they're printing them or book magazine, whatever, they're going primarily to bookstores. Well, up in all my life, they've been in bookstores everywhere, but recently not so much. But I can say there are lots of physical stores there anymore. Um, but so I would say the cost of them actually printing large runs of these would be fairly minimal, just because they've reprinted them so many times. Like I can say from the 1950s and 60s right up to at least the 90s, they were just consistently reprinted over and over and over and over again, like globally. There's just like so many editions. Sometimes you'll see the revisions in the front of the book saying like this one is Asterix and Cleopatra. It says first published 65. I don't know if that means English or first ever edition. I don't know. But then we've got multiple revisions and editions. And this one's by the Hachette, which is a UK publisher. But then it's got 3 other imprints in here that it's been outsourced or whatever. So these ones are quite modern, and these ones didn't exist when I was a kid. They're the exact same books, just a different, like they send off the files of whatever the masters are to print the books. So send them off to whatever company's doing them. But when I was a kid, it was completely different brands that had, when you looked at who was publishing what. And in the front of here, that's got a little thing, there's a little graphic for a Facebook and an Instagram for the publisher. And certainly that didn't exist when I was a kid. So it was strange seeing them in there.
Asterix was like very popular for my entire year. I remember maybe might have been like second class of primary school. We were brought over to the library every Wednesday. It was like kind of part of
Yeah,
it
same.
was not attached to the school, but it was only like up the street from the school. Like so, it was a
Yeah,
kind of
our
short
one was
walk.
in the actual school.
The teacher would kind of bring us there on a Wednesday, and everybody would always like run the Asterix comics the way they were done. It was kind of done in volumes during the children's section. I think there might have been like possibly 20 different ones at the time. And the way it kind of worked in the classroom system was obviously everybody would use their library card to get out a particular Asterix comic, but after you read that comic, you usually just swap it with your friends with whatever one day we're getting out. So like the library were getting back all these like random books from kids who didn't even rent them out in the first place, like because everybody was like swapping them around. But that was kind of our first introduction to
that's a similar experience. Like when I was in primary school, I mean, I don't know how it works in New Zealand, but when I was a kid, we had a library was actually part of the school itself, their own school library. Same at high school, we had our own library building that was on the premises and not like if you're the public, you couldn't go there. It was just the school's one. But they had loads of Asterix books, which I mostly read when I was younger. As I got a little bit older, I started reading the Tintin ones because they were. The funny thing is, like Asterix is like something a lot of younger kids get into, but it's actually harder to. You would think Tintin's more mature themes, but it's not harder to read. Maybe in comprehension for the global, like if you watch a James Bond film, you're 5 years old versus 30 years old. There's a lot of political and this and that going on in the background of the world you wouldn't understand as a kid. But the actual words are a lot harder to read in Asterix than in Tintin books, which I would think it was the reverse, but it's not.
I think, and having flicked through a few Asterix comics in the not too far past, I can definitely tell you this as a child, like 99% of some of the jokes or like of the jokes went really over my head, and the context of a lot of stuff went over my head because you know the way there is obviously a lot of references to like actual history and like you know the Normans and the Gauls and actual history. So as a young kid, like I was like I didn't really get a lot of that. For me, it was more. It's like you know the way when you watch The Simpsons as a kid for the first time, you still enjoy it. It's still a cartoon,
It's
and
that's
you're
a good
laughing at the
comparison.
gags. But you don't. But then you can rewatch it as an adult, and then all of a sudden it's funny in a totally different way because all of a sudden you understand the context of a lot of the stuff that they're doing. That's kind of like the way it is with Asterix. I feel like as an adult.
Actually, it's one of the strengths I think of good fiction is that it can work for different age groups, and you watch it at different points in your life or read it, and you get different meanings and context out of it. So that works really well like that. I like also that in the Asterix books, like at the start of them, it's always the same. You get like a list. Here's a list telling about other books. Then they're showing the map of where they are. And when I was a kid, it was like Gaul was like, where the hell is that? Because I didn't know nothing about history. I didn't know it was anything to do with France. I knew that Romans obviously Rome and Italy, but I didn't know Gaul meant France as a kid. So that was a complete mystery to me. But the first page of the story, well, before the story, is always telling you who the characters are, like the main ones, like Asterix, Obelix, Getafix, Chief Vital Statistics, and the Bard Cacon. I can't. My mouth's gone all dry. I don't. Kekok. I can't say it because my tongue has gone too dry from talking. I could normally say it, but I like that they have that in there. But also, it's a way that you know, typical books. You got your front page, whatever copyrights, and then it's got to end with the cover and the back page. It makes all the pages line up when they're printing it as well, so they have the same page count and all that.
And not to get too off topic from the actual comics themselves, but Asterix, it seemed to have a little bit of a boom period in the early 90s, at least over on this side of the pond, because around the same time we were going to the library and reading those comics, the Kinder Chocolate Company started releasing Kinder eggs that had Asterix figurines as collectibles in the eggs. And then now, maybe this is a false memory, I'm not sure. Was there like an Asterix animated movie or something that came out around the same time? Possibly there might have been a little bit of.
There's been so many like from the 70s through the 90s. They consistently kept making animated films. I'll say yes, like basically every decade there's been more. My friend actually gifted me a box set of animated films, and some of the earliest ones. It's the first 5 or 6 of them because they're still doing them now, and most of them have actually gotten better with age, as in like the newer ones are actually quite good rather than being rubbish. Like that, I would say the Asterix films are better than any of the Smurfs films. because they're more in the style of Asterix as opposed to the Smurfs is just like an Americanized version. And then of course you've got the live action ones with like Gerard Depardieu and stuff like that.
I feel like it could even come down to like Asterix maybe has too many syllables. It just I can see some marketing guy being like, no, this was never going to work. We can't push this.
It still bugs me to this day when I watch people talking about this or that, or whether it's online or just everyday language. And when they talk about this symbol, which is like a little, not the crosshash on the keyboard, but the little star-looking thing, is an asterisk with an S. But people call it Asterix because that word is more well-known in the English language than asterisk of the keyboard symbol, even though they're two unrelated things.
No, it is. It's a weird thing. I've never really thought about it before now, but you are right. Everybody
I've heard it all my life because I read those
Asterix.
books as a kid, and then I was using computers from a fairly young age. I knew both words, and every time someone said, I was like, they don't mean what I think they're saying. They're not talking about Asterix. Because your ears are going to pick up, oh, the adults are talking about Asterix. Like, no, they're not. They're talking about that symbol that's on the keyboard, because it's not just on the keyboard, it comes from, other things.
It's not a hashtag, it's a pound sign.
Yeah.
It's not the hashtag.
I knew pound signs at a young age too, because in Australia and New Zealand, not only do we get these Tintin Asterix at the bookshops and school libraries, at the local newsagents, we would get comics, and sometimes it would be like the UK. Occasionally, we'll get those UK editions, and you'd see a pound symbol on there. Also, we had Whizzer and Chips and the Beano when I was a young kid. They were there as well. So they would say P because they were pence or whatever. How many P?
I had fond memories of the Beano over here as well. Another nice broadsheet comic you can lay out across the table and read. Sorry, Americans, we just did that type of thing better over on this side of the world, I'm afraid.
Well, in like the European territories and in Australia and New Zealand, because we get a bit of everything. And then, manga didn't get much popular till a lot later on, but now it's just everything. They're just every kind of comic and thing. But yeah, I'll just read this one out and then I'll get on to some other stuff. So the traditions gave the world some of the most beloved characters in comics history: Tintin or Tonton, Asterix, Lucky Luke, Spirou, the Smurfs, Blueberry, which is like a Western one, Thorgirl, which was like a fantasy thing, and Valerian, which got made into a pretty rubbish movie a few years ago, but the comics are really good. I don't have them, but I've seen like images of it. It's quite quality. It's awesome. Each of them defining an era and spreading far beyond the European roots. Today, BD stands as a cornerstone of European pop culture, influencing animation, filmmaking, design, even global perceptions of graphic storytelling. Whether into space-time operas, historical parodies, Western epics, comedic heroes, Franco-Belgian scene laid the groundwork, and its legacy continues to shape creators around the world. And it's still very influential in the way that, old films are and different things. But unfortunately, globally, the sales have actually gone right down. It's just unfortunate. It's still available. We can still pick them up here and there. But like, I go to a bookstore now, there's nothing. There's literally nothing if I go to any bookstore in my state. Whereas when I was a kid, but basically all my life, except until the recent years, anywhere in Australia and New Zealand, you could walk into any bookstore in the whole country, not just like a random one, any main bookstore, you would see Tintin books, Asterix books, usually nearly however many there was 10 at the time or 20, usually the complete set. And there would also, next to that would usually be Calvin and Hobbes. That would be like the three most popular things. Or probably the two other ones will be Garfield, Four Flats being a New Zealand thing. But those are the things that were just perennial favorites that were always there, that sold year after year for like several decades. And they're still around in print, but you can't walk into a bookstore anymore and find them anymore, which is kind of sad. But it's the same thing with comic shops closing down and bookstores going away, movie cinemas going away.
They kind of became victims of that system that is dependent on some type of modern digital media in order for the published thing to be relevant. Yeah. If I was to really think hard, I'm pretty sure the last time I saw Tintin books in the shops was way back when that live action movie was released. When it was that 2012, 2011, something like
10 years ago. So
yeah, so that was the last
part 1 of 2, and they didn't make the second part.
But I think like the only reason I was even seeing those books in the shop at the time was because for the push for the movie. So there was that kind of overall media push, and I think it's not just these Franco-Belgian comic properties. It's nearly every one of those kind of classic properties. If it doesn't
Yes.
have like you're not going to see like the Man of Bronze stuff, or stuff like that. Like you're just not going to see any of these type of old school comics and stories around the place
No,
because there's
I'm
nothing
sure
to
even if you're
push
in
them.
France now, you'd probably have to go to a specialty shop the way we in the 80s and 90s had to go to direct market American comic shop to get stuff rather than being everywhere now.
Yeah, which is sad in many ways. That
I wish more of them
we
were
need to
available because I
influence.
try and buy stuff and you can't get it. And then I find there's all these other ones I'd love to read, but you just can't get the damn things. I mean, they exist somewhere in the world, but I can't buy them. They're never listed on eBay and they're not on any stores. I can't order them.
Some of these covers are very nice here.
Yeah, it's just kind of
Read the
seeing
Great
like you've
Pyramid.
seen different genres, different art styles. And you can always tell when you see them because they're that same big chunky size. And like Blake and Mortimer is another one, long running one, which has very similar art to like Tintin. When you first see it, you think, oh, is this another Tintin book? It's like, no, it's completely different. But as a kid or even an adult, your eyes recognize the graphic shape and the size and the layout. And it's like if you saw a Spider-Man cover and an X-Men cover, you know that they're related somehow, even though they're different characters by the formatting and the graphics and colors and all that. And this Thorgal one, I've never read this. This is quite popular and been around a long time, but really beautiful art and great covers. Makes me think of bloody Willow and stuff like that and Conan.
Yeah. I just, without knowing anything really about it, it just screams to me, adapt this into like a
Yes.
pay-to-play MMORPG
Yeah.
game. It's just like, build your Thorgal character. Pay us $50 a month to subscribe to this new game.
Yeah, they certainly like they've had peaks in popularity and stuff for various characters in the media. Like when they made that Spielberg and Peter Jackson Tintin movie that got some video game tie-ins. Like I played a game that was alright based on that. That's probably the last time I bought a physical product that was on a store shelf or something of Tintin, having to order the books online.
Yeah, beautiful covers though, really impressive artwork.
Yeah, and they got the stuff that's more, well, all ages like Asterix and Tintin and kids stuff, and then stuff that's more mature, but not mature in the like Frank Miller, Alan Moore, Watchmen sort of dark demented way. Mature as in like fantasy storytelling and like more mature looking artwork and themes rather than just being like dark and depressing weird stuff. But also we had coming up into the 70s and early 80s, the magazines, whether weekly or monthly, whatever, I forget how often they deal with them, like they did in Japan and the UK, serialized stories. The graphic album collector versions started becoming more popular. So, and also we had different artists and that coming along. We had like Mobius, or was it Jean Girard? I think his proper name is. You had like the launch of Metal Erland, which is the fantasy magazine that was like more adult style that relaunched in America as heavy metal, and it was always showcasing really cool new artists and artwork and stories. But like Mobius, of course, was like the big one that internationally influenced so many people, from like bloody influence like bloody people like Osamu Tezuka and Hayao Miyazaki, and like other like global phenomenon artists and comic artists society have as like a reference to go, oh, I like this guy, and it's influencing stuff over in Japan, and like they're doing the more adult style stuff and in the 70s and that.
These are just. I'm kind of what era are we talking about here? These Thorgals, like, are
I don't
they?
know when they first appeared. I've got a little thing in here, which is a little cheat sheet. 1977. There we go.
1977. Wow. So it's around a long time.
Yeah. So you got Valerian, Blueberry, they're 60s. Tintin goes back to 1929. I've got Tintin Land of the Soviets down over there. It's a separate volume. It's like the only black and white book. The rest of them are in color. Spirou, which is like magazine, but then Spirou and Fantasia were a character duo books, 38. Lucky Luke, 1946. That's older than you think. Asterix 59, and then Pilot magazine that launched other stuff 59 also. But then we've got Metal Erlant 1974, Mobius, and Thorgal in 77. They're kind of the classics. Like if you go to Japan, you've got like Astro Boy and Akira and different giant robots. These are like the classic all-time popular sort of ones.
Oh, it's quite the timeline like they have of titles there. And like being
Yeah, I wish
honest
I
with
could
you,
get a hold of more of them.
yeah, there's like even on, you know, I would say I've heard of half of them and maybe know 3 of them, if I'm being
Yeah,
totally honest. Like, you know,
I'd probably most like to read at the moment Blueberry and Valerian. So I don't know. I might have to hunt. I can't buy them anywhere in English, so I might see if there's any dodgy sites around so I can at least read them once and have a look at them. So I'd sure like to buy the English version, but they're just. I know they've done them before, but they're not anywhere I can currently get a hold of.
sometimes ironically, the best place to even get English versions of these is in the country of origin itself where they're printed. Because when I was in Belgium a few years ago, in the English section of their comic shops, they would have just the English translations of their own homegrown stuff alongside the American things. So if you could find maybe a local, like a shop that's local to the country, maybe check their stock and see
Yeah,
if
it's
they've
not a bad
English
idea.
translation.
The Asterix box set I just got in the last few months, and so it's the first time I've actually owned Asterix books ever. I've read them many times in my life, but always from the library because they're just everywhere. So I don't need to buy them when you can just read them for free everywhere. But there was none available anywhere. I looked on eBay and different book sites. I actually got the last copy imported from India. And some of the feedback was a little bit dodgy, and I was like, is this going to turn up? But 42 had sold, and it's a box that weighs several kilos. It's got 40 individual books in it, so it costs several hundred, but it's much cheaper than buying individual volumes, which used to be really cheap, but they've gone up now. And now to buy all those individual volumes, you would pay double or triple the price of the box set. It's gotten like 20 years ago, you could get them all day long, cheap as chips. Now they're just prices are not good. So I was very happy to pick it up. It was the last one of like 42 had sold. I showed on the counter on the eBay thing. And some of the feedback was like, box was damaged on arrival. Some of this, blah, 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 not happy. And I did a bit of research, looked around for this. There was a picture. Someone had posted a photo showing the actual set. So I knew they got it in hand. I thought that's good. They got it rather than being scammed. And it showed that it was Hachette, and it was basically it was printed in India by one. So there's Hachette, which is UK, but then they've outsourced it to the local, whoever printers there. But this is like 10, 15 years ago. This is like old stock. And the guy who runs the store is a store that sells carpets. And they just had this old stock. I don't know if it's a businessman and he took over some old stock from someone, or he used to run a bookshop. Who knows? But the reason they were damaged, I found out, is he actually had responded to someone saying, no, this is how they're like when we got them. So they were already old when he got. So the exterior box is real flimsy, crap cardboard and quite rubbish. That was all kind of beat up, but the books inside are perfect condition. There's nothing wrong with them because they'd been sitting in a bloody warehouse or something for years, and the boxes slowly started like caving under its own weight. So I worked out by looking at multiple different sellers in different parts of the world, all of them had the exact same issue.
You're good here with character names. What's the name of this kind of dude with the big long white beard? Can you remember his
That's
name offhand?
Getafix. He's the druid, which makes the
Yes.
magic potion. In the comics, they have a potion that he mixed it up. It's all natural. There's no steroids in there. Thank you. I just read a story where they actually list what was in it, and some of it's secret, but it's like the old KFC secret herbs and spices. It's all different mixes of herbs and things that grow in the region. But when they drink it, they become temporarily super strong. Like how strong? Like at least as strong as Spider-Man. Like you could pick up a car with one hand, which is crazy. That's like a couple of tons. So the conquering Romans who come into the territories and try and take over this Gaul villagers holdout, when they drink the potion that only lasts for, they never tell you exactly how long, but maybe a few hours, like the old, I don't know, bloody 1 hour man or whatever hell he was, like Our Man from the old bloody Justice Society, a bit longer than our man. They can just beat off the Roman army and legions anytime they come, and they've beaten them so many times that anytime any soldiers are sent there, they're always like cowering in fear and like literally shaking and making up excuses to run away and not go there because they know they're just going to like smack them around and beat them up. And whenever they do, it's always like real comical. He'll like smack him into the ground or throw him into a tree. It's real like kind of Looney Tunes type violence. It's not like, you know, graphic violence.
Oh, I was no, I couldn't remember his name. The reason I was asking was I don't know what it is. There's something about his entire appearance and the way he's drawn. I feel like he's been copied and duplicated across
Yeah.
loads of other things. You know the way anytime you're watching any type of say Disney, anytime you need like a wise old man
Yeah,
archetype, I just feel like he's drawn the same way. Like, you know, as in somebody's taken that design and just ripped it off, you
yeah,
know, and
like
put
the
it
old
into loads of other stuff.
Sword in the Stone one, Disney. You got a guy with the beard
Yes.
there, like the Merlin, and always like tall and skinny with a big beard. And
Yeah, no,
for
yeah, double
the
beard
Mickey
almost.
Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Mickey one, the musical one, another one
Yes.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's the
sure
same
sure
kind
who
of
did it first.
archetype.
Definitely,
And
definitely.
you can see that this is from down the bottom says Asterix and the Vikings color models because this was a shown for this is a sell someone's selling on eBay. It was a production model sheet, but it was the best thing I found along that had online that had all the names on one page, even though it's not the comic art, just to see them together. But you can see they got all the different shapes and sizes, and even though it was like comic stuff before they did the movies, it fits the rule of animation silhouettes quite well. You can make a silhouette of just about any of these characters, and you know who they are if they were just completely blacked out.
Yeah, this kind of goes back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier. I feel like these animated kind of drawings look familiar to me. I think around that time there was some type of new movie they were pushing around that time. Kinder were doing those little collectible
Yeah,
toys.
yeah, I remember the little Kinder ones, and there were some other ones that were a little bit bigger that were around, I think, in the 90s, or they might have been repros from the 80s, but I remember turning up in New Zealand and that, and I had some secondhand from a mate from years, and some of the arm had fallen off and was broken, or some of the figures are split in half because they were kind of two hollow shelves that went together typically.
Vital Statistics is the best name ever for that character.
Fully
Something that
automatics
would have
is
went
their
totally over my head as a kid. You know, that's one of
yeah,
those
that's
things, you know, I just wouldn't have thought anything of it, you know.
imagine just being called bacteria. That's your name. Fishmonger's like wife's bacteria.
Unhygienics, that's a great one too.
Yeah, he's the fishmonger, I'm pretty sure, and that's his wife up the top right. And you got double helix. Because all the when you get the Roman characters, they've all got like crazy, silly names that are all like puns and gags and that.
They're really nice little animation models, though, I have to say.
Yeah,
Like they
they're beautiful.
translated the comic got translated very well, like into animation style
Yeah, I'm
wise.
looking forward to rewatching a lot of these animated films. Some I've seen as a kid and from the old VHS rental. Some I've never seen because they've made so many over the years, and I've never gone back and rewatched any of them. So we're seeing it with fresh eyes. But seeing as I just got a box set recently, I'm really getting stuck into reading them books through all the way through in order for the first time. Then I'm going to watch the films. I don't want to kind of jump ahead. I just want to take the time and enjoy the books.
Nice widespread here. This is from your own collection, is that right?
Yeah, I just took a photo of these an hour ago. Went outside of the Pedro, and that's why the book's leaning on the other one to hold it open, because otherwise it stop it pinging up, so I can grab a quick snap of it.
Yeah, I just love the look. It just brings back memories looking at those panels. You know, I remember that art style so well.
And you can see the typical silly, comical violence. It's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. It's like they get beat up and exploded or burnt, but then 5 minutes later they're fine again. They're just embarrassed they
Yeah.
got beat up.
Yeah, it really
Like,
was
nobody
like
ever
you were
dies in
reading like
Asterix.
a Looney Tunes strip.
Yeah, I can see
Violence
on the right there
tomfoolery.
one of the Normans. I am time and a half the conqueror.
And we see all the busted up Roman soldiers in the very last panel there, you know,
Yeah.
after getting the shite beat out of them.
They did that game in the 90s. Konami did a great arcade beat 'em up after they did Turtles and all that. They did Asterix one. And that was like really good. And they would do the attacks just like in the comics. He would swing his arm back and forth like this, smashing them on the ground. Or they would get them like this. They would do the slaps like this to the face. If you watch the wrestling or play fighting games, where you do like super fast slaps. It was like a really good game.
It was a very good game, I remember. And there's probably a ton of people out there who maybe their only reference to Asterix is from that game as well.
Well, I think when I was playing that game, it had been a few years since I'd read the books, but we all knew who the characters were instantly. We like saw the game and played it. You know?
Oh, it had a presence, even though you might not believe it in 2025, but it was a global brand at one point, was Asterix.
Yeah, there's still a lot of media. They're probably, other than the books and the films, like there's a lot of video games. I mean, a lot, all the way back from bloody like Commodore 64. I don't know what the first one, if there's anything on Atari, but it was Commodore 64, Master System, Mega Drive, Super Nintendo. All the major consoles up till today still have games made. Some of them are not great. Some of them are okay. Like I've tried out a couple of modern ones. They were well made, but they just weren't my style of game. My favorite ones have always been the first two on the Sega Master System were really solid platform games, like as good as Mickey Mouse and Sonic the Hedgehog. Just look beautiful, really fun to play all the way through. You wouldn't call them remarkable by today's standards, but I still find them very playable now.
Romans here all lined up in disguise here to perform a kidnapping.
Yes.
A druid napping.
Yeah, that's when I think I forget. I think it's in this volume where someone discovered they sent a Roman into the Asterix Noblish's village in disguise as a Gaul. They like change his hair and cut his hair and completely change his outfit and everything. And they send him in, and he ends up drinking some of the potion and becoming strong. And they're like, oh, he says he's ill or whatever. They're like, give him this potion that you'll be fine, do this, and he's all strong. And he goes back to see his commanding whoever's and says, oh, I know the secret of this potion, all this. And so then the idea is that they want to find out the secret of this potion and conquer them. So they kidnap Getafix. So that because of the spy went in, they finally knew. They didn't know how it was made. They just knew this guy knew the secret recipe. He's Colonel Sanders of the story. He knows the secret recipe.
Yeah. Well, look, if you need to get your fix, you go to Getafix. He's going to sort you out.
Oh, and there was gonna be like a convention of other druids from all the different villages. That's how they kidnap him because he's going to there. Yeah. But it's kind of like it's it's a typical silly Asterix story, but there's kind of high stakes because the one thing that stops the Romans conquering them is the secret potion. So if the druid's gone and they can't make it, it's kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like they might really be in trouble this time,
Yeah. Stakes are high. Is this the end of Asterix and Obelix?
Yeah. It seems a pretty obvious thing to do in the story, but when in a lot of the stories, the Romans don't know that Getafix is the druid. They don't know that he makes the potion, or they just know that these guys are crazy strong and beat them, and that's about it. I'm just thinking of like when I used to go to one of my mates' places sometimes on a weekend when I was still a kid. Well, old enough I could go out of home by myself, ride me push bike across town. So I don't know, 8, 10, 11, somewhere in that territory. I'd go stay at my mate's house, and they had from their school library a whole bunch of Asterix books that they just took out, and they would just be like sitting under their beds. And on a weekend, you'd just like pull them out and grab them from under the bed and just be reading them lying around. And they just never got around to taking them back to the library. So they had piles and piles of these books.
Yeah, it just slipped their mind. They definitely weren't trying to keep them forever.
Well, it's not technically stealing. They just didn't take them back.
Yeah.
The school was just across the road from where they lived. So you're supposed to take them back eventually.
Yeah. They say they're still borrowing them to this day.
But so my first round of reading them was when I was like young, in the first years of primary. My second round was at my mate's house when he just had piles of them because we didn't have pocket money or nothing to buy anything at that stage. So the fact that he had them sitting around, we could just read them over and over again. Well, one weekend I stayed there, and his parents were fairly dodgy and usually just not around, so we just like mucked around and just watched. We didn't think it was stupid. We just watched TV and read comics and shit, just kid shit. But there was never much to eat in that house because their parents were kind of deadbeats and didn't really bother buying them food a lot of the time, which kind of motivated you to go to someone else's house and find some food. But the only food in the house one weekend was just a big sack of potatoes. And like, what do you do with potatoes? The kids like chips. So we just made loads of chips for like 3 hours. And it was the hot boiling lard. And you think, like kids, you could set the house on fire. But I'd made it with my dad loads of times. So even though as an adult, I'm like, Jesus, we could have burnt the house down boiling lard. But we did it safely. I'd made it that many times with dad. We cleaned it up. You never even know, other than the smell, that we'd made them. But I remember, because we were by ourselves, we're just like, we like chips. Let's make some more. It was the only food in the whole house. Like we'd eat literally all day. It was just potatoes. So we just kept making more and more. And eventually we're so full, our guts are just like, oh, no more. I remember waking up in the morning. We went to bed and there was plates of chips just all over the place in the morning. You eat a couple and it got a bit nasty, and then you'd reach under the bed to start reading Asterix book. And that was probably like the best weekend.
That's some grade A childhood memory right there. For our American friends, when Johnny says chips, he means fries. They were making their own homemade fries.
Hot chips.
Yes.
Or fries, but thick, not the skinny bloody like me finger fries, but yeah, we just made so many. I remember just like, our stomachs like distended by bloody chips.
You needed that sustenance to get you through the night,
Yeah.
Yeah, you made do with what you had.
It was like the kid equivalent being hung over the next day, going, "Oh, no more, no more." It's just chips and the smell of sauce everywhere.
Food hangover.
But yeah, good memories. The other thing we did, because their parents went around, is we'd go into the mother's boyfriend's room, or their father lived up north, so it was like the living boyfriend, whatever. He had 70s Monty Python records in the original sleeves, and we would take them out and like play them and listen to them, and we'd put them back. We'd never, damn it, we were super careful with them, put them back where they were. But anytime we would come home, he'd go, I won't say my friend's name, he'd go, "You've been listening to my bloody records, haven't you?" It gets so bad. And I won't say my friend's name, but I will say the name of the boyfriend, because fuck him, he was a prick and he's not around anymore. He was called Ian, and he was big, but not obese. But we used to call him Big Underpants Ian because he had these big underwear, but like the old white Y front sort of thing that were really big. A couple of times, my mate got a clean pair, stuck them on his head. He was running around what he made the record.
Yeah, fuck you, Big Underpants Ian.
But we listened to them over and over and put them, but we never damaged them. But he'd get so mad, and it's like, you think we're taking drugs or something. Listen to bloody records.
Yeah, he must have been very particular about
it was. The funniest
thing
was when he got mad, we would just laugh at him. The madder he got, the harder we laughed. He would get more mad.
For Big Underpants Ian.
Yeah. But yeah, Asterix, chips, and Big Underpants and Monty Python records. That was like a weekend for us.
Yeah, weekend you'll never forget.
Yeah.
Burned into your memory.
And in the winter, you'd have to start a bloody fire in the fireplace too, because it would get cold if you had any wood around. But yeah, all the Asterix books used to end with the big got the big bonfire and they're cooking up more boars. That's all they seem to ever eat in these books, is these wild boars.
Yeah, 3 carnivores, these goals. Not a vegan among them.
No, they like their meat. But yeah, the other little character, of course, is Dogmatics. You can see at the bottom page with his bone there. He's the pet of Obelix, and he was a cool little character. He didn't in Tintin, as we'll see in a moment. Tintin's dog Snowy talks, but only to the reader, not to the other characters. Whereas this dog, he's very intelligent, like Snowy, but he doesn't have his own speech bubbles to talk. But he's still full of mannerisms and lots of expressions. And the Obelix, of course, fell into the cauldron as a baby, and so he permanently has super strength, like I don't know. He's like stronger than Captain America and Spider-Man, but not Superman level. But he's really strong. So he can't drink
He's
more
got
of
a
the
hell of
potion
an
because they reckon
appetite.
it'll make him sick. And they
Yeah.
don't like the bard singing. That's why they're always tying him up, and you get these repeating gags.
And then
Yeah, this image is from the Castafiore Emerald, and that's the what do they call it? The Milanese Nightingale, or whatever the hell they call it. She's like an opera singer on the right, and they're all toasting her. And little Snowy there actually gets drunk as well. He sneaks some booze and walks around getting drunk.
yeah, naughty Snowy. Snowy's already drank the booze out of his glass.
Yeah,
Empty.
yeah, he's
He's
great. I
licking his
love
lips.
little Snowy in the stories. But here we've got on the left we've got Nestor, who was the butler at Marlin Spike, which is where Captain Haddock lives in this bloody hat. We've got Professor Calculus. We've got Tintin in the middle. He's like the old boy reporter. He starts out as a reporter in the earliest stories, like a Clark Kent or a Jimmy or whatever. But as the stories go on, he becomes just more of a I don't know, a bit more Indiana Jones. He's still a reporter, but it becomes a bit like Indiana Jones kind of stuff, like globe-trotting adventures. We've got Thompson twins, who are Thompson with a P and Thompson without a P. And I've got some typical pages and panels here from the ones.
Yeah, really like the art style here.
Yeah, I've always loved the
Which
Tintin
is
art. In
something
2 seconds, there's a little meow boy going.
this is something like, for me, my first introduction to Tintin was not comics at all. It was actually a cartoon that was airing in the early 90s. Now, I'm not sure if the cartoon itself was actually made in the 90s or whether I was watching a rerun, kind of like, it's like Scooby
I
Doo and
think it
all
was
this
the
other stuff I
90s.
would
I've got the
watch.
box set of like one of them in the other room.
Yeah, but it was my first introduction to the character. It wouldn't be till like a couple of years later I'd even realized that there was, a Tintin comic that they were based on, even though
Yeah,
I'm sure it's said at the end of every episode in the credits that it was based off a comic. But
I
when
think
you're a kid,
there was some older animations and live action ones from like decades ago, and then there was that modern one that the modern animated show that isn't from like the 90s. That one was really good. That was like really faithful to the books, and the voices and the art style and the music was really good.
I used to have hair like Tintin when I was a very small child as well.
The flick up.
I had it, yeah, flicked up, yeah, yeah. Not intentionally, like that was just its natural way of kind of growing before I grew it out. Um, look, tobaccos, you wouldn't be seeing that in an art frame in a modern comic, Can't be
Yeah,
uh can't be influencing young people to smoke
they have
possibly.
they're at like the Mardi Gras in South America, and well, in a couple of different ones. And at the Mardi Gras, you see there's someone in a Mickey Mouse costume, and there's also someone in an Asterix costume.
Tintin is also, though, he like, we mentioned it being him being a bit of an adventure, Indiana Jones style. It is set in the past as well. It's not supposed to be contemporary, is that right? It's kind of
I'm
like,
not entirely sure because of the timeline of when they publish them, but like pretty much you can go 50s, 60s, 70s for like most of the stories, I would say, when I don't know exactly when they're set, but that's when they're kind of published. So I'm not entirely sure. But to me, like 60s, 70s is kind of the feel of it. If you watch like the earliest James Bond with Sean Connery, it's got that kind of period sort of feel to it.
Tintin, though, he's definitely like their flagship brand, I reckon, even more so over
Yeah.
Asterix. That was one
Oh,
thing. The
yes.
last time I was in Belgium, my wife and I, one of the streets, we were actually outside. I'm not sure if it was the headquarters or maybe just one of their main publishing offices, but they had that like Franco-Belgian comics, and like in the window display they had like Tintin, like an actual big life-size model of Tintin, and loads of the
Oh, nice.
vintage comic covers behind them. I think it was like their main Brussels kind of headquarters or office or whatever. It was a pretty
Oh, that's
cool
cool.
kind of setup they had
Yeah.
outside it.
As a kid, Asterix was always my favorite. And then as I got older, I like Asterix and Tintin. But as an adult, I love both. But I think Tintin's my overall favorite just because it's got more, I guess it's just got more variety in the stories, and where Asterix is almost, it's got historical fiction elements to it, but it's kind of almost like fantasy Tintin's a bit more realistic, and it's like traveling in your mind, traveling not by map like in the Muppet movie, but traveling by comic book. He's like going all around the world, and there's ones in China and South America, and you're seeing all these different cultures. And Urge, which is like the pen name for the guy that makes the books, he took a lot of painstaking research into like the countries and the cultures and like the outfits and uniforms and all this sort of stuff. And a lot harder to do back then because there's no internet. So it's looking up like photo references and stuff like this. So a lot of work went into like creating these books.
Well, I think I nearly admire most here, apart from the beautiful artwork. I actually love how the text is done. It's very just,
Yeah, it's very easy to read. I mean, I've
yeah,
shrunk the
real easy to
text.
read,
It's not
very
full
clear.
resolution for the show, but the text is really easy to read on the. It's much easier to read than most American books when you've got it in front of you because they're big panels.
I wonder, is that a result of how it's done for the translation, or do they actually maybe it's like that in the
I think
original
it's really.
publication as well?
I've seen now and then. I've seen pictures of it in different languages, and it always looks the same to me. I mean, even if it's in like Sanskrit, it still looks basically like that, but in
Yes.
Sanskrit. So they do keep it consistent. There's
I'm
some
not sure
great
if it's
gags.
coming through.
Yeah.
If anybody is listening, my cat is asleep on he's asleep in my lap. He's snoring loudly, so I hope
I
it's not
can't hear him.
affecting my audio. That's okay.
There's great like dramatic stories in Tintin, and like even though it's like I know you guess you call it like genre material, but like bloody Indiana Jones or I don't know Flash Gordon's and old time strips and serials, it's got that real classic adventure feel to it, and you get a lot of variety of like serious drama. Occasionally firing guns or someone's characters do actually die, but not the main characters, but like kind of side characters here and there people get shot, or like on Star Trek, where it's the red shirts get killed, but not the main
Yeah.
characters, that sort of thing. And then there's great gags always with Captain Haddock here in the blue with the beard. Um, in this story, he's a famous alcoholic in the stories, like a full on alcoholic, and it's almost like by the time Tintin he comes along in the later stories. And when Tintin meets him, he's kind of like fallen from grace. He's like this kind of legendary sea captain who comes from generations of other sailors. But when Tintin meets him, you never see him on a boat or near a boat. He's always hanging out in his big mansion, which he's inherited from his family. And all he does is walk around complaining about everything and getting drunk like some old annoying uncle. But he's often played up for comedy effect. And here, Calculus has given him some kind of medicinal pill or something that makes him he can't stand the taste of alcohol or whiskey, and as soon as he sips it, he just like spits it out, and it tastes like puke to him. And it's like, and you don't know what's going on with the story till halfway through. You think he's just going completely nuts or has gone off his trolley, because he always gets comically angry and starts kicking things, and then he falls over and hurts himself or like breaks his leg and stuff, just doing stupid things.
Thing. It's kind of it's kind of a real thing. At least it is in the modern times. You can give people drugs now to make them totally
Yeah,
ill when they go near
yeah,
alcohol. Ahead of its time, perhaps. Coming up
yeah.
with that one.
And he's I always, even as a kid, I just loved his dialogue and the alliteration. His famous sayings here in this panel here is going billions of blue blistering barnacles. So all this stuff is going back to like him being a sailor and all this, and he always comes up with different variations of that phrase. And each book he says like different ones with different words. So they're just like every time you see it, it's kind of like a different one, and it gives you a bit of a you laugh about it again and what kind of weird things you got to spit out this time. And but yeah, there's
You
lots of great
remember?
physical comedy in
Do
there,
they
like the old silent movie kind of comedy.
do they acknowledge, or do they? Well, because it's been years since I watched the cartoon. Does his alcoholism ever come into the cartoon, or they just kind of skirt
I think
around
not
that?
so much. I think it's still a background element of the character, but you don't. I think in the cartoon you don't explicitly see him drinking or going on about that sort of thing. But in the comics all the time, he's like, "Oh, I fetched you a bit of whiskey just now," or the
Yeah.
one where they go to the there's one where they go to the moon in the comics. Tintin and his compatriots actually go to the moon before the real life moon landing actually happened. That this story takes place before that. But there's a weight limit and a space limit for oxygen and people in the rocket, as it would be in real life, of course, like, you know, for travel and rocket fuel and all that, only the most essential things. And he's like, oh, well, if we get up to the moon, I guess I'll have a bit of a drink. And he's like, no, Captain, we can't have the weight limit, we can't have this. And then he just goes ahead and smuggles whiskey into the rocket anyway, even though it could affect their weight limit and affect the bloody rockets. So that's how much of an alcoholic he is.
Yeah, because all I remember, like in the cartoon, he is always a cantankerous and grumpy character, but I couldn't really explicitly remember whether or not they kind of ever showed him having a little sip of something here and there, you know.
He gets like comically angry and often just like here he gets in arguments with this parrot that was gifted to him that he doesn't want, and it just keeps talking to him and he starts arguing with him. There's this guy who for some reason the phone numbers here are real simple, like 123 or 432 for like back in the way old days. And one of the local numbers that's one digit different from him is the butcher. So people keep calling his house trying to put these orders in for meat. He's like, no, this is Marlon's Bike Hall. It's not the butcher. It's like, and then this other guy called Jolly on Wag, who's a traveling salesman, turns up at his house one day, tries to sell him insurance policy, and he's like, no, go away, get out of here, don't want to know. He hangs around for the entire story. And by the end of the story, he invites this whole family to come and live in the bloody mansion where they take off for an adventure. So in the next book, when they come back, this insurance salesman has moved into his house and his whole family's trashed the place.
We'll be claiming squatters' rights too, the fuckers.
Yeah. But he never, he gets angry at him, but like the insurance guy just always thinks he's his best friend, and Haddock just hates him and tells him to get out of here every time he sees him.
Look at that. I'm loving this here. Billions of blistering barnacles. Yeah, no, love these panels. Just love love the style of it.
The opera singer lady, she's shooting a performance at the Marlin Spike Hall, which is like the big old, like you know, kind of English style or mansion or whatever that he lives in. And excuse me, the bloody, what do you call them, the photographers and reporters, there's always like the unofficial ones, like the ones that chase Princess Di and all that, the hangers on that nobody invited, always turn up, and they're always making up stories. Like here, after he breaks his leg because he fell down the steps in the beginning of the story, he's in this wheelchair and she's pushing him in the garden. They announce that they're getting married, which is a complete fabrication of the paparazzi. So then he's reading it, and then he's getting mad about it, and then he's throwing the magazine at the bird that she gifted to him and that he also can't stand.
I love it.
But yeah, they come up with crazy stories, and I'll just grab one from the floor, just so I can look at the because on the back you get the. Hang on, I might just turn my bloody light on because it's going to get dark.
That's the media paparazzi, of course, exaggerating and printing salacious stories about our good man, Captain Haddock.
On the back of each volume, it shows you like the other books. So you're like, oh, I've read that one, or I really want to read this one. But it goes all over the place. There's like bloody Egypt, China, America. He's going under the bottom of the ocean to the moon, South America. So you get all these traveling ones, and this is one of the later books, Castafiore Emerald. This one, the cool thing about the Castafiore Emerald, it takes place all in one location, just at the Marlin Spike Hall where Haddock lives. And in this book, they never actually leave here. They're here usually. It's like a bookend. They're either leaving there at the beginning of the story and then coming back, like Asterix had to come back and have the big bonfire and eat the food. Usually just see it in passing. Here, the whole story takes place there. We see them in all the different rooms in the house. It's like watching a Hitchcock movie or something, where it's all in just one location. But there's still elements of like crimes going on in the background and a mystery. There's weird noises and what's happening at night, and they think someone's stolen these precious emeralds that belong to the opera singer. And it turns out that no one stole them, just a bloody magpie whooped out the window and no one was looking. And it's like the big mystery. And it's just like, oh, the magpie took it. There's no criminal. And there's all these like red herrings through the story. But the great thing is all the regular characters turn up and come to the mansion. And all the the sight gags and the blistering barnacles and all the regular gags and stuff that you've seen call back to all these other volumes I've already read. And even if you've never read them, they still work. But if you're a long time reader enjoyer, there's references to like dozens of other stories just because they've met all these other characters and there's other adventures, even though they're not mentioning the other adventures in this particular volume. So for that reason, it's one of my all-time favorite ones, because there's just so much character depth by the time we get to the story that they can be in this one location and have it like just, I don't know, be such an enjoyable book, even though they're not bloody getting into gunfights with bloody or Russian sailors or not crashing planes or doing no Indiana Jones stuff in this particular volume.
Or mishaps with his would-be lover.
Yeah, and the irony is that he can't stand the opera singer. He hates her singing the same way they hate the singing of the bard in the Asterix comics. Except she's actually a globally renowned opera singer. It's just Haddock can't stand her, and she keeps inviting herself over to the house.
And she's totally infatuated with him, but it's not reciprocated, unfortunately, for her.
Well, she thinks it's like funny though, because when the paparazzos make up the story, she's like, "Oh yes, that's wonderful, wonderful," because it keeps her name in the papers, and they're always making up not whatever makes her glamorous and popular. She doesn't care because it just helps her career.
Yeah, it's all a big PR exercise for her.
But yeah, it's great seeing the recurring characters like the Thompson twins, who are like two bumbling detectives who also have their own regular gags. It's like watching, like, they look kind of like Charlie Chaplin with the bowler hats and mustache, and they're always like falling over and they're trying to like finish each other's sentences, but they get them mixed up and say the wrong thing.
Nice covers here.
Yeah. But yeah, I've just finished rereading pretty much nearly all the Tintin books, and I'm probably like a third of the way into the Asterix ones, because there's quite a few. Like the Asterix ones is 40 something, whereas the Tintins is there's about 20 or so.
Are they still an ongoing thing, or have they both been kind of stopped?
I don't think they've been around for a while. Like, I know the Tintin ones finished up quite a while ago. Like, I mean, a long time ago. Whereas the Asterix books, I don't know when they ran up to, because when I got that box set, there was a whole pile of ones I'd never seen before. Like, and I was like, oh, they obviously ran for a number of years after I ever stopped reading them when I was younger. So this, I couldn't tell you. I'd have to look it up.
I'm sure it's one of those things that doesn't really matter, probably, because the stuff from this era will still be superior, no doubt.
I'm just loving reading them again now, and getting, for the first time in my life, I'm reading them all in order. And like, I've read all the Tintins before. I've never actually read all the Asterix books, because I've got 42 in that set. I think there's a couple that are not in there. But as a kid, there's probably like the main used to be about 20 that would regularly be around when I was a kid.
Yeah, sometimes from time to time, I will see like bundles of the Asterix books. I might be tempted, especially after today's chat, because it's like one of those things. It's like I said, a lot of the stuff went over my head as a kiddo.
Yeah.
So to revisit it as an adult, it probably would be pretty rewarding, I'd imagine, for both, not just Asterix. I'd say for Tintin as well. Tintin, it wouldn't be so much a revisiting as more so a discovering, because like I was saying earlier, it was really the cartoon was the main driver of what I would know of Tintin. Whereas at least with Asterix, I did actually read the comics as a kid, even if it was a little bit out of context and what have you. But yeah, Tintin, if I was to start reading Tintin, it would nearly be like a brand new world for me to get into.
Yeah, if you ever look them up, the Tintin box set you can still get quite cheap, and actually it's got all the books except for one. I don't know why exactly, but one of them was not in the set because it was because all the early ones were kind of re-edited and redrawn and that for their final forms. But anyway, the Tintin box set's quite cheap. You can still get all the time. And that comes with the single volumes. There's also like omnibus editions, but they're a lot smaller. And I avoided buying those because they won't sit flat and open like these do. And it's a completely different reading experience not having those size panels, for me at least, anyway. Whereas if it was an American book, I wouldn't care too much about the size. But being these books have always been this big size, I didn't want a smaller version. There's Asterix omnibuses as well, which I think they're a bit better. I think they're hardcover. They're a bit nicer quality.
Well, I know. Look, if I'm being truthful, for me anyway, it comes down to becoming an old man, and I just prefer being able to not have to squint as hard and not have to
yeah,
just be constantly holding something. Like my hands and my wrists get tired holding up books. That's the
yeah.
truth. And it's nice to be able to lay something down and actually look at it properly and just not feel like you're straining yourself.
Yeah.
As sad as that makes me sound, my brittle body is falling apart and little things like that, when it helps my eyesight and helps my hands and wrists relax a bit. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
definitely.
that's good enough for
Like
me.
I've read lots of comics and books and paperbacks and other stuff, and I've got ones like those ones about bloody who killed WCW. That's like 700-800 pages of pure text. Weighs a
Yeah.
ton. You've got to sit it flat. You can't hold it. You'll get bloody carpal tunnel trying to read the damn thing.
There's even a lot of my like big books on the shelf that I haven't read in years just because unless I can actually lay it out and read it, I'm not gonna hold up like the DC Comics encyclopedia and just read it in front of my
Nah, yeah, all
face.
those hardcover books weigh a ton. I've got loads of those things sitting around.
But no, definitely if I do see any kind of spring up locally, I might nab a couple of these Asterix or Tintin books because you do see them from time to time. They were obviously plentiful enough, at least back in the day. Lots of
Yeah, well,
people
you
had
would
them at
get
home.
you've got those omnibus editions, which is like 2, 3, 4 and ones, and then secondhand ones. I'm sure would be a lot cheaper in your part of the world than over here, just because they don't publish them over here anymore. Whereas they used to always publish them locally in Australia, New Zealand. The sweet sounds of lawn mowing I can hear across the yard. That's like reminders to like wind up the show, John. You're gonna get an hour of lawn mowing noises.
They do look nice there in their little box as well when you see them all
Yeah,
lined up
that
like
one's
that.
decent. That's the Tintin one. It's got a nice solid. It's just a hollow one side cardboard thing, but it's quite thick and strong. It holds the books properly without them warping. And that's where they live, down on the floor, bottom of this shelf, just off camera down there. You can see the Asterix book box. See how it's all beat up and coming apart. It's just holding together. But that's how it's been for like probably 15 years in storage somewhere. It's not the fault of the blokes posting it from India, who did post it quite well. But all the books inside were perfect. They weren't not even a bent corner or nothing. The books were perfect. So I wouldn't care if the exterior box had completely collapsed. I just wanted the books because the box is super thin, rubbish quality. It's not a proper. It's made to sell it. It's not made to store or display in. It's not a because it's Hachette, which do things on the cheap. So there you go.
Of course, we have a lava planet predator and praying mantis alien guarding it, just to make sure nobody tries to steal anything.
Definitely getting away with my books. Yeah, and hiding behind there is some of the bloody Batmans and Popeye and Turtles and stuff.
No, but it's definitely it's food for thought. Like looking at this stuff, and like for me, it's one of those time capsule type of things. It was just you know how things kind of happen. There's like when you're young and there's just so many new things around you almost pick up something new every month, it feels like. But definitely
Yeah,
for a while there, I want to say around, for me it might have been 92, early 93, Asterix was definitely a presence, especially with those weekly library trips. It was just something that was,
yeah, same.
something you thought about.
Oh, I just remembered why that covers that one Asterix and the Big Fight. They used to do these pocket size editions of them when I was a kid, and I had that one. That was the only one I ever had, and that's why that cover image is just kind of burned into my retinas. And I just worked it out now why it was so familiar, that one cover.
How was this? It was your childhood one that you
Yeah,
you knew and
I
loved.
like the full size ones. It was nice having that because I had that at the same time. I've still got the Ladybird. Hang on, this one over here. Transformers the
Oh,
movie, the
nice.
Ladybird.
Oh, cool.
book.
Very cool. That's
And I
awesome.
had this before I watched the movie, so I knew. Spoiler alert! I knew what was going to happen in the movie before I seen it because I had this book. Because it's all film stills. There's no drawings. All just like screen grabs of the bloody movie. So I'm like, oh, I know what's happening in this movie now. That was a
Very
treasure.
nice.
Yeah, to still have it. Yeah.
Nice covers here.
Yeah, a couple of random ones I picked up in the last couple of years. Yoko Zuno is the young Asian-looking girl there who goes on adventures like a Nancy Drew or Veronica Mars sort of character. And the Gondwana Shrine with the Adventures of Blake and Mortimer, which is, there's a lot of those books. It's one of the other popular ones, probably not that well known globally, but there's quite a few of those books. I wouldn't mind checking out some more. It's quite dry. It's very serious. It's very like this is your granddad's story, serious, not mature, just serious, proper Flash Gordon adventures but like real world stuff, not science fiction. Just it could be boring is what I'm wanting for you.
Yeah. They're not going to entertain you with lots of visual gags like Asterix.
No.
Tintin will,
But I might picking some more up, just have a go at them.
Of course, Yokozuna, not to be confused with Yokozuna.
No, definitely not. She's a bit skinnier. I didn't even know in the Asterix books that are not in that set, which is the main books, there's some other bonus ones. There's 2 or 3 Dogmatics books that are just like him solo. So I ordered one yesterday for like $12 on Amazon. So see what it's like.
It'll be interesting. See what he gets up to by himself. A little canine adventure. I would be curious, though, of people who are watching or listening today. If there's, first of all, I'm guessing just offhand, there's going to be more of awareness of Tintin as opposed to Asterix. That's just my guess because of the Tintin cartoon and the movie exposure from 10 years ago.
Well,
but I would be
New
curious.
Zealand, Australia definitely heard of both because there's been like multiple movies and animated things as well as the books. Like, where for other parts of the world,
I'd like to know if you folks actually have memories of Asterix and memories of Tintin the comics, or was it just kind of, one of those? Because, like I was saying, when you're a kid, there's so much stuff coming at you.
Yeah.
Even if it was something that was a bit of a phenomenon at the time, it's still possible it may have missed you just because there were so many other things competing for your childhood attention.
When I went to school library, it was Asterix, Tintin, dinosaur books. That was like what I was reading for years. I just ignored everything else. Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, get out of here. Didn't touch them.
Yeah, I always associated Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew more with my older brothers and sisters, the type of stuff they would have read.
I just associate them with boring people. To read boring things. Give me predators and aliens and fantastic superpowered ghouls and potions and a dog going to the moon in a spacesuit.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. So it was a great learning experience for me, I have to say. And it's going to be a bit of a learning experience for me next week as well, I believe.
We're going to cross borders, and we'll finish off our global comics tour, I guess, until next year. Because we've done some American, good old-fashioned American comic books. We did our Spider-Man special and 90s special, really. Death Superman, Batman Nightfall, Clone Saga Spider-Man. So we've been over to Europe, and we're going to stop off and talk about some Hellboy, which is back in America again, but with a lot of Eastern horror type influences, I should say, Eastern European horror type stuff for there, your Baba Yaga and that sort of things going on in Hellboy, and as well as the old H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu and all those old time science fiction horror writers influenced a lot of Mignola's Hellboy. So we're going to do a double show next week, cover 2 topics in one. Get the old mighty atom, Tetsuwan Atomo, Astro Boy. Awesome. Known as an icon more than anything now. You can't, his books are out of print. You can't buy merchandise in most places unless you happen to live in Japan or Italy, or at least where the merchandise is hiding. Can't get in Australia. But he's one of my all-time favorite characters. Very fortunate in the early 2000s, Dark Horse published 21 volumes of manga, and they're in the Perth Public Library, and I read them all, and I love them to bits. I've only got one of them, but I've read them all a couple of times, so I love them. Some of my favorite stories. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about
it's going to be. I know even less about Astro Boy than I do about Hellboy, so it's going to
Yeah.
be
Well, I got
coming
lucky.
to
I got
school
lucky
big
reading those
time.
Dark Horse books because they're out of print for 20 years now, and you can't buy them unless you want to spend $1,000 on eBay, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, look, now that you've mentioned Dark Horse, like my main source of knowledge about both those things was from the ad, because I was reading the Aliens and Predator Dark Horse comics, and they'd always have the ads for those Astro Boy mangas, and obviously for Hellboy as well, because it was a
Like
separate
it had
publication.
in America, you had like Viz, Tokyo Pop, Dark Horse, and some other ones that were the early adopters and pushers, if you will, of manga in America to try and get it to take off. And then they had long gaps where it just went away and no one cared, and now it's come back in a big way. The old manga comics in America are now more popular than American comic books.
It's all come full circle.
But yeah, we're going to finish up there. Thanks for tuning in, checking out the Boba Joe show. Leave us a bit of a like or a comment, or let us know if you know these characters from games or animation or books, or whether you're just like, who are these people? I've never heard of these characters ever.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that weird half CGI live action Tintin movie from a few years ago actually was based on something. That's crazy.
Yeah, with Jamie Bell, I think it was.
I actually haven't watched that since it came out either.
Yeah. It was really good. I bought it on
to.
Blu-ray straight away. I was so annoyed they didn't make a follow-up because it was it's all the Tintin books are pretty much their own stories, except for there's one story that basically crosses over 3 volumes, and that's what they were making the adaptation of in that movie. So it was meant to be in one more movie to complete the story.
Well, if I had to guess, because I really don't know, but I'm just going to guess straight away, is I bet you it did commercially well in Europe, but flopped in America, and that's why the second one didn't.
Yeah. And I can't remember, behind the scenes, other stuff happened with Spielberg and Peter Jackson, and with them and their lives and film projects and content. There was other machinations as well. You know, they intended to do it, but it didn't work out. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll catch you guys all next time.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.